Hey guys. How are we? Awesome. Cool. Nkechi, how's it going? You're on mute. Hit the unmute button and then let's hear it. I think
Can you hear us?
Super. Yeah, got you. How's it going, guys?
Very well.
Good.
Hey, Nkechi. Good to see you.
Hello. Good to see you too.
You look like you're
I
sipping
can't hear
morning coffee.
You're muted.
You're on mute. Yeah.
Still muted.
Can you hear me?
No, I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I said it's 6 a.m. where I am, so I need the coffee. I've been up since 4:30 working for Itana. So
wow.
I am in Barbados, the beautiful island of Barbados.
That sounds chill. That sounds like not work.
No, but it's a lot of work. We are building infrastructure here too. So because we need Itana people to go global. So we got to build the future. But we can talk about that later. Let's talk about.
We will dive into that. Let's talk that one. Nkechi, how are you? How's your morning been? I'm guessing you're in Lagos or.
I'm in Abuja actually.
My bad.
Living cool. Good. It's good. Where are you? You're in Nairobi, right?
Nairobi, yeah, on the other side.
If you're building a business that is about taking on the government, you sort of need to be in Abuja.
Yeah.
Just in case you say the wrong thing.
And you need to appeal in person very quickly.
In person, yeah.
So good. Oh man, I'm really excited for this session. Always love having catch-ups with you, E. We've had a few now, and Nkechi, really nice to meet for the first time and heard a lot of great things. Before we dive into who we have on the call, I want to know who's in the audience. So what I'm going to ask is everyone in the comments to just maybe say quickly like your name, where you're calling in from, and what you're working on at the moment. So just drop that in the comments. And that will give us a couple. Here we go. Yeah, great. And you can tell us what you want to hear about today as well. And as we do that, I'm just going to run you through what we're doing today. So today we're chatting about Itana and building modern infrastructure for African startups and how Itana is helping with that and some of the perspectives from our incredible panel here with us today. We have Iyinoluwa Aboyeji, who is the co-founder of Itana, but also a co-founder of many things. I'm sure, E, you're going to dive into a few of them today, but notably Future Africa, Accelerate Africa 2, now I think it's rebranded to Andela, Flutterwave, the list goes on. E, you can continue adding to that if you like. And Nkechi Oguchi, who is the Chief Community and Marketing Officer at Itana, who's supporting building that modern infrastructure through Itana as well. So that's what we have with us today. Today we're gonna spend a bunch of time really just trying to understand like what is infrastructure. We always think about like SaaS or like technological infrastructure, but what does it really mean to build infrastructure for startups and for companies across Africa? Which is such a great question to be answering and asking. We're gonna have a discussion about that, and then we'll have some time for Q&A from the audience. So you guys will be able to ask your questions to E and Nkechi as well. I almost forgot to introduce myself. I'm Caleb, the CEO of Tech Safari, and we're also trying to build, I would call like social infrastructure for Africa's innovation economy to thrive. We've done that starting with like media, building out a media platform through stories on like LinkedIn and via newsletter. More recently events, so bringing people together both virtually like this and in person across the continent and globally. And finally, now through recruitment, so helping startups hire mid-level talent to scale their companies and looking at how else we can plug these kind of gaps as companies try to scale across the continent. So that's what we do at Tech Safari. Now that you know who we are on stage, let's get to know a few people who are in the audience. I'm going to introduce a couple of people who have said hello. Great to have John from Cutstruct here, building a constructions material marketplace. Josh from Lagos working on an EdTech app. Shaila from Dubai working in VC. I might skip to a few others. So Oche from Clarops, an AI-powered workforce platform helping managers and CXOs get visibility into how work gets done. Emeka from Camto Racing. Angela from Nairobi, Kenya. So helping founders scale to 1 million in ARR. A lot of people, and like actually from across the continent, which is great because we're talking about Pan-African expansion. I think we're all introduced. How are you guys feeling? E, Nkechi, you ready to dive in?
Very, very keen to dive in.
Let's do it. Let's start at the start. I want to ask, maybe this question goes to E to kick off with, is tell us the story of Itana. Like, tell us a bit about what is Itana and how did it all start? What inspired its creation and where is the thing going?
Fantastic. Well, the good thing is I'm the right person to answer that question. So I think most people, probably Itana as a concept, came into most people's consciousness perhaps in the last few years, but it's been a burden we've been carrying around for 7 years now. So what happened was when I was at Andela, we realized that we had a number of scaling problems that were unique to companies like us. Practical example, when I started at Andela, we had, let's just say, about 15 people in bootcamp, of which 4 people were like recruited from bootcamp. But and this was maybe in May of that year, by December, we had about 40 people. Now, typical businesses in Nigeria don't grow that way, right? They're typically growing more gradually. You add 2 people, 4 people, 5 people, 7 people, but tech companies, as all of us that are in this WhatsApp group know, are very different. Like they have to scale very fast just to make ends meet and to meet the expectations they have. And we started to hit up against just practical realities. Our investors wanted to invest. The Nigerian entity was a bit too exotic for them. So we actually invented the Delaware. We started that trend of incorporating your company in Delaware. And then most importantly, at the end of the day, the reality was, we had the benefit of all of us at that time being on the 6th floor of CC Hub. But as we started to build companies that were scaling really fast, CC Hub became really small for us. So when you think about community, and I loved the 6th floor of CC Hub and the rooftop. That was amazing. But like when you started building a big company, we tried to recreate that feeling in many ways. Back then, we used to hold very big parties on a rooftop in Yaba. And those parties were famous for those who remember at that time. But, we were hoping we could have that kind of feeling all the time. And so the idea behind Itana was, hey, if we're going to build a tech community that's going to scale, we got to figure out these 3 things. We got to figure out where are we going to build it? We got to figure out how are we going to build it with government regulation? And we got to figure out how do we get the people who are going to build this ecosystem together as often as possible? And that was what gave birth to Itana. I was like, what if we just had our own Kalakuta Republic, right? Our own kind of separate space where we could do, we could basically build the optimal conditions for a tech company. It would have the right policy, it would have the right infrastructure, and I'll be able to see people like Caleb and Nkechi every day. And that was how the idea for Talent City, which was what it was called at the time, was born. But it's been a long road. We first of all started out trying to buy an abandoned special economic zone in Calabar called Tinapa for $100 million. Let's just say that deal didn't go well, right? We didn't end up doing it. And one of our advisors gave us some really good advice and said, hey, you're trying to do this an hour away from Lagos. And I admire your courage in doing that, right? But consider the fact that Lagos is where most of your customers are. And if anybody did it in Lagos, it wouldn't matter whatever you did anywhere outside of Lagos. And then that was what brought us back to Lagos. And we're very lucky. We had a partner who remains very close to our heart. And they set us up in Alaro. Alaro City. And we, over time, as the vision sort of evolved and grew, we started to realize that actually, you know what, the lowest hanging fruit, and in some ways, the highest hanging fruit was working on policy and building this, because no matter what we wanted to do on infrastructure, it'll take 3 years. Thankfully, we're closer to infrastructure than we've ever been, and we can talk a little bit about that later. And then the second thing was we can build this community, and we started with a founding council, where we have some very impressive people, from bank CEOs to former CMOs of telcos to some of the brightest people in the ecosystem as part of the community. So that's basically our origin story.
Unreal. It sounds like, like, just to recap that, because there are a lot of gems there. It was building these big companies that just had to scale quickly, because that's the reality here. Growing out of CC Hub's 6th floor, not being able to throw big parties because you had too many people there, and you needed a bigger space and kind of a space that was designed just for you to really build. And then just trying to figure out, like, how do we bring the people together, the sort of policies together, and have the space for this sort of thriving tech ecosystem, and how do we build that infrastructure? I love it because we came at the high level. We talked about the vision and where it started. Now we're going to get into like the practical with Nkechi. I'd love to just like understand from you, today, what is Itana? How do people engage with Itana? And what's the practical work you're doing now? And I guess within that, I'd also just love to know a bit about your background as well, Nkechi. I know you've done some work in sort of building this social infrastructure through recruitment previously. And I'd love to hear a bit more about that as well, across your background.
Awesome, thanks. I've had quite an interesting background. I actually started as a former founder myself, trying to build a health tech company. And that's what sort of led me into the world of startups and investment and everything else. Fresh out of school, when people were thinking of going to do their masters, I took my master's money to go and start a startup, because I thought, that would help me learn very quickly. And in doing that, I got to see the power of community, because I really didn't know how to build a great business. But imagine when you're out of school, you feel like you know everything. You feel like you can do everything. And then building a company and getting humbled by that experience. But fortunately, I was supported by a great community, and I saw how it was very impactful for people to have community when they are building, for them to have that supportive ecosystem. I then went on to do some work at Ventures Platform, where I eventually became the CEO of one of the subsidiaries, Ventures Park. And I've done some work in the talent space as well, before then coming to Itana, which to me, I saw it as even a bigger platform to provide a community support for people that are building Pan-African companies that are solving real painful problems in the continent, because I believe that that's what's going to create prosperity for everyone. That really is what's going to develop the continent. So I just wanted to support more of that.
Caleb, not to interrupt Nkechi, but she just glossed over the fact that she led Ventures Park, which was exactly what we're trying to do, but like at a smaller scale in Abuja. She should probably double down on that.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
That's a story for another day. But it was an absolutely amazing experience, because at the time when we were building it here in Abuja, it was sort of counterintuitive, because lots of the ecosystem work was in Lagos. But we really believe that, talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't as evenly dispersed. So we wanted to build the Abuja ecosystem at the time. And there's a lot of work that's gone into that. So it's been really remarkable. So like he said, Itana was a way for me to be able to, scale up that impactful work that I was doing. For Itana, on where we are now, he has given you the origin story. And I always love hearing the story, because it came from a real pain that he experienced and a lot of other founders are experiencing. And it's been really a long journey. What we are doing is something that in most countries, you would see it's a government initiative, but this is privately led and government backed. And I imagine what the impact would be for companies across Africa, where they have a place that is purpose built for them, purpose built for these great companies. So we've done a lot of work on the policy side, being able to create the frameworks and the kinds of environment and services that would serve these companies. And we started registering companies in our zone last year, the beta companies, so that we can continue to refine and fine tune what we're building. We've seen a lot of interest across sectors, right? We've seen from fintechs, which is really, really interesting, from AI, and now we're even trying to continue to ask and double down and say, what does an enabling environment look for these kind of companies? What are all the things that we need to attract for them to be able to do great work? So we've had a lot of companies that are registering in the zone. And then on top of that, as E mentioned, the physical district is a few years away. We should have our phase one out by 2027 because it's important to also create the hard infrastructure. So a city where people can live, work, and build great things and have access to basic things like constant electricity, great connectivity, and the rest of it, and that very great community feel. But in the meantime, we are building the digital residency. These are people who want to be a part of the ecosystem, want to start accessing the support that Itana has even now. So these are people that maybe they're not yet ready to set up a business in the zone, but still want to access a level of support. And we've been building that out. We have over 300 people in that community now, and even a larger wait list of over 4,000 people. So it's been really interesting how far we've come, but it's been very community led. So everything we've done has been within from the people that we're building. And I think that's what has made it truly remarkable.
That's really cool. I wanted to maybe double click on a bit of that, which is try to understand, we talk again about technological infrastructure. It's clear here that we need social infrastructure and other forms of infrastructure for companies to grow. What do you guys think in what you're building and also just generally is really missing from some of these conversations we're having about scaling startups when it comes to that infrastructure piece? Because it sounds like you're looking at community, policy, physical space, but I'd love to know maybe why are some of these things neglected and which of these do you feel are the most crucial to really progressing?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that, particularly with the social infrastructure. I'll say oftentimes what's missing is the conversation around social infrastructure, because what really makes an ecosystem, particularly in Nigeria, where you're not going to get government support, you're not going to get necessarily right now the quality of life that you're looking for. The advantage Nigeria has over most other ecosystems is talent density. And so if you don't have enough spaces where the smartest people can get together and feed off of each other's brilliance, it's going to be very difficult for you to sustain growth, right? Because people are not learning from each other. They're not building community. Now, the reality is as with Nigeria, as with all things Nigeria, we're hacking our way there. I remember when I started, when I started at Andela, our demo solution to the problem we had was, first of all, we went and we rented an old hospital, which we turned into a hostel. And we took a 10-year lease on the old hospital. And that place is actually still used as a hub where people live and work and play. It was called Amity, meaning friendship. It's still called that today in Yaba. Then after that, we moved into an estate called Jacob Muse Estate. And there's still a lot of tech companies that are out of Jacob Muse Estate. RiseVest, before they got their office, used to be out of Jacob Muse. Bycoins used to be out of Jacob Muse. Eden Life, I think, used to be out of Jacob Muse. There's a lot of companies that's still out of Jacob Muse. So we just rented a bunch of apartments. But these are these are rented apartments. These are there are families there. There's just a bunch of restrictions just by natural attrition. There's just a bunch of restrictions in terms of how you can scale, and given how fast tech companies scale, there's just limitations on that. Now we're trying to build all of that at Itana, and the reality is, even though we don't yet have the building we want, right, because we're actually designing something specially for the ecosystem from scratch, what's really amazing is you're already starting to see some sort of community form in the social infrastructure we already have. So next year, for example, we're moving Accelerate to Itana completely, right? So it's going to be a physical program and it's going to be at Itana. And we already have we have about 576 units of housing. We have some makeshift event space. We have a bunch of things. And the idea is just get people talking to each other and meeting each other. Now, it is out of that social infrastructure, in reality, right, that the conversations about policy become easier, right? Because then you have a cluster. And when you have a cluster, government can now optimize policy to support that cluster, right? Yaba became Yaba because, first of all, a bunch of founders gathered there, and then it became common sense for the government to say, okay, and at that time, this was novel policy. Right of way in Yaba has to be free because there are all these technology companies there, and more will come if right of way for internet connectivity is free. And right now, Yaba has seen incredible property value appreciation, incredible economic activity appreciation, and still a growing cluster of technology companies because of that policy. So it's sort of like a Matthew effect where those who are given more get more. And then finally, like I said, community is the soul, the heart and soul. Because what a lot of governments do is they go out to like someplace like 200 meters out of town or whatever, and kilometers out of town, and just be like, start a tech hub here. And you're like, for who? With who? How? Why? And because there's nobody who calls that place home, right? At the end of the day, it just becomes an empty blurb and a wet elephant project. And that's why at the heart of what we do is sort of what Nkechi has been devoting her life to this past few years, of building out this community of people that are committed to working together because they learn from each other and they can grow their businesses together.
So cool.
I have a comment on that.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind, I just want to comment that actually there's something that you had shared some few weeks ago, where when you were looking at raising funding, I think that was the first Future Africa, the first fund, right? And you had to look at your network to see who could you reach out to very quickly. And to me, that is really powerful because people don't understand that you build that social infrastructure before you need it. Like imagine if you had to start building it from scratch at the point where you needed it, that would be just near impossible. But being able to invest in this is really important. And how that also connects with the policy part is something that we're going to talk about. And also all the other layered benefits and all the other layered things that Itana is designing to be able to support that community of builders that we're creating for.
That's so good. I think about that a lot as well. I think there's something about building a digital community, which I would say Tech Safari has done quite well. Like having a really big audience of people, being very connected to a lot of people and being able to just hit them up. It's like, it's really transformed what we're able to do. But there's a different level when you meet those people in person, you have these physical spaces and connections. And there's a lot of serendipity in building a company. Like actually a lot is what you do and a lot's luck and who you know and who gives you the right idea or who invests at the right time. And just increasing that surface area by having a lot of incredible people in one space is a way to really transform outcomes. And it sounds like Yaba is one of those hotspots, and you have hotspots like that all over the world. So that's really cool. I guess my question though is, like as a follow-up to that, is interesting and Nkechi, like thinking about bringing all these people to one physical space that will be open soon, and having Accelerate Africa there. How do you think about scale? If we're building not just for Nigeria, but for Africa, how do you think about scaling that sense of community, scaling some of those benefits of that space that you have or that special economic zone that you have? And how are you guys considering doing that, not just for like one city, but like across the continent?
Yeah.
So either of you take as well.
Yeah, I'll kick off and then I'll let Nkechi add her incredible wisdom. So the vision for Itana is not just for Nigeria, right? The idea is basically, how do you build the ideal and optimal conditions for you to continue to grow digital economies across the world, not even Africa? Because as more and more work kind of moves from the global economy to the digital economy, given the challenges that we're currently having with globalization, right? What you're going to find with digital economy and AI is that the playing field is going to level up, right? And Silicon Valleys can be built almost anywhere. But you see, the magic of Silicon Valley is not the buildings, is not the air in Palo Alto. It's actually the people and the level of talent density that you have in one location, and how that fuels all the innovation and creativity that we've come to know Silicon Valley for. And the idea is, how do you build enclaves like this in every country in the world? That's our broad vision. Well, first of all, you got to do the work to get it right in one place, right? Because if you don't get it right in one place, there's no reason why a country is going to want to change their rules to create new rules for a place. And a lot of countries have called and said, hey, E, can you come and do Itana in our country? And we have to keep saying no. I'm sorry, no, we're not ready yet. And it's not because we don't want to do this in other countries, but we know how critical, how game-changing critical it is for us to get this right in Lagos, learn all the lessons, learn what works all the time, learn what only works in Lagos, learn what doesn't work at all, right? And then take that, put it in a box, right? Where it's not just real estate, which can be done anywhere in the world. And that's what a lot of governments are doing. But it's a box of real estate, a bunch of policy frameworks, some technology tools, and a great community of incredible builders in one box that just we ship into countries, right? To ensure that the digital economy, the internet economy, is not just an American thing. That's the vision that we have, right? When Stripe says they want to build the economy of the internet, we're like, yeah, but you're only doing it for America, right? We want to build the economy of the internet for every country, not just America. So that, I think that's sort of our vision. And we're going to start in Africa, as you can imagine. And I there's a reason I'm in Barbados too. So we'll see how that goes. But the idea is Lagos is our home base. It's our bed. It's where we are lighting the fire. That's what Itana actually means. But from there, we want to actually let every part of the world catch the flame of building these digital economy innovation ecosystems that are sustainable, that are local, that are very local, that thrive on talent density and social infrastructure. Nkechi, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
I feel like you hit it, because we get this question a lot. A lot of people have said, yes, come set up in our country. And I think you covered a lot of it. And what I would just add to it is that for the companies that are in our zone right now, a lot of things that they've asked us, a lot of things that they've seen the need is, how can we ensure that we use Itana as a means to scale across Africa? You know, there's been a lot of work on the AfTA agreement, being able to improve Pan-African trade and the rest, and it hasn't really been as implemented as we would have wanted to see. But Itana could be a great platform for that to be achieved, a great sandbox to test a lot of those frameworks and policies that would see a company being able to register in one jurisdiction and operate across Africa, a company being able to set up banking in one place and it's seamless for them to do that across everywhere, a company being able to have just that one thing that gives them access to the entire African market and possibly even more. So Itana is working up to that, because that is the future we want to create, where we take away those friction of doing business and make it more seamless for people to build and to scale great African companies.
So good. I just did a quick Google, and yeah, Itana means kindling a fire, which is such a great name. Makes a lot of sense.
It's actually pronounced in the Yoruba word, it's pronounced Itono, and I have to say it because we battled it in and out. We call it Itana,
Okay, we'll give you a pass.
the Yoruba pronunciation is Itono.
As long as you don't call us an oil company, we're good. We're just, actually the actual traditional pronunciation of the name. And I fought Nkechi enough times to be like, what is Itana? What is that? But it's okay. We'll give everybody a pass.
Tech is in the oil, so I guess it makes sense. Nkechi, I want to dive a little bit deeper into what you just wrapped up on, which is around regulation and the policy side. Like, I'd love to know when a company, I'd love to know maybe today when a company works with Itana and sets up, what are some of the policy benefits that they get from your work with these regulators? And then what's the vision for that, and how do we feasibly get there? Like, how do you get to a point where a company sets up in Itana and now they can actually just go live in 10 markets rather than having to go set up in each of these 10 by themselves? I'd love to hear that sort of roadmap.
Awesome, great. So right now, Itana is live and it's digital first, right? So people can register and set up an entity from anywhere in the world. So you can be in Nairobi and set up an entity, a functioning entity that can carry business in Nigeria and then scale across Africa. And it comes with all the incentives of us being a special economic zone. So that zone has incentives to help improve the ease of doing business for companies that we service, right? So one is being able to register digitally, as opposed to needing to come into the country, go through a lot of regulators to be able to set up an entity. So you can do that all digitally. The other bit is the tax incentives that comes with being registered in the zone. So I want to point out that Itana is governed by a body in Nigeria called NEFZA, and they have frameworks for how special economic zones should run. So now within Itana, we are working to refine that framework for the companies within our zone, depending on the sectors they are. So these incentives that exist already are accessible by the companies that are registered in our zone. So I mentioned the tax incentives, which they get to enjoy, that helps improve their cash flow, as opposed to having a lot of it lost to taxation. The other bit is a special type of banking that they can operate that allows them to do business in any currency that they wish, of which is restricted in other parts of Nigeria. But in Itana, you can do that. So you can operate a multi-currency bank account. You can repatriate 100% of your capital, which is really important, because if you have investors that are investing in you, they're thinking, how can I get my capital back? How can I exit? And with companies in the zone, that is not problematic, because there are no restrictions in how you're able to repatriate your capital. They enjoy immigration benefits that allows them to bring in experts to maybe train their local team if they want to bring investors in, which I have seen as really important, because there are some people that want to learn more about doing business on the continent or want to be able to get support for their local team, but they can't do that because of certain restrictions that exist. If they have goods that they want to bring in to do their business, they get, no custom duty, seamless processing for them to be able to do that, access to talent support as well. So there are lots of layered incentives for companies that are within our zone that exist based on the framework that has been designed for special economic zone. And now we are improving on that. So for fintechs that may need special licensing for their own sector, being able to make that even seamless for them to get, because there are some companies that are in that space, and first they get their registration, and then to get their specific licensing takes months, which also slows down their time to market. So being able to make sure that all of that is as seamless as possible. So that's a bit of some of the work that's being done. I'm sure he does some work on the policy side as well. So he'll probably want to add on that.
My chairman. I work for my chairman, Lukman, to do a lot of work on the policy side. So I think the first thing to keep in mind is that, everything that Nkechi said, those are standard free zone benefits. It's incredible. But the one really exciting thing is, if today you walked into any other zone and said you wanted to set up a free zone company, and by the way, there are like 42 free zones in Nigeria, so it's not like we're the only one. Every other free zone requires you to buy or lease land. Only Itana doesn't, right? You do not even have to show up in Nigeria. You can get all your paperwork done virtually. You can start today. Very soon, we'll have it so that in a week you can get it, or in 24 hours you can get it, like Delaware. But it'll take a little time depending on how complex your business is. But at most, the most I've seen anybody is maybe 2 months. You'll get your paperwork, you'll get your bank account. The least I've seen somebody is 2 days, because their business was very straightforward. They got their paperwork, they got their bank accounts. So it's actually pretty seamless. Now, what's coming? The first thing is that the president set up something called, we're part of an organization called Digital Free Zones in Nigeria Initiative, right? And it has AFC, Africa Finance Corporation, in it. It has PwC, the big accounting guys. It has a lot of law firms. It has a lot of very credible people. And all these people went to the president and said, hey, we really, really, really need to have a way to be able to get more companies like Andela and Flutterwave to be able to prosper in Nigeria, as opposed to incorporating Delaware. And the minister, my two ministers, my minister of Digital Economy and the Minister of Trade and Investment, both of them are locked in on this concept of digital services being kind of the key unlock for Nigeria. So they went to the president with all these important people and they said, look, we need a committee that just focuses on making new rules that help companies thrive so that we have more Andelas and Flutterwaves, and they are Nigerian. Like they are domiciled on the continent, not in Delaware. So the president created a committee called the Presidential Committee on Digital Free Zones. He's the chair. He's the chair of the committee. So he doesn't allow anybody to chair it. He has an alternate chair who's the coordinating minister of the economy. And then they have an implementing vice chair who is the Minister of Trade and Investment. And then everybody you can think of is there, right? Minister of Digital Economy, CBN governor, SEC DG, that just to give you a sense of who's making the policy, right? And that committee has to report to the president every 90 days, right? We send a written report every 30 days. We meet every 90 days. And after the last meeting, there's now a speed up on creating the right infrastructure within the zone for holding companies and fund managers. So before, fingers crossed, because things take a while with policy, before the end of the year, you're going to be able to, as a fund manager, set up a licensed entity in Itana. And if you're a company, you're a holding company, particularly if you're a founder, and this is one thing I would tell founders, right? A lot of founders aren't told the challenges with Delaware. So people go to Delaware and they're not American. They actually are not American. And they don't realize that when it's time for you to take out that big exit from America, you got to pay 30% of it to the American government. Nobody tells you that until it's time. Nobody tells you that you can't claim anything.
Learn from experience.
From experience, yeah, painful experience. Nobody tells you that like the fact that there's all these taxes, you get XYZ off the taxes means nothing because you don't pay tax to the American government. Nobody tells you anything like that. So, especially when you're thinking about things as an African founder, you want to be kind of careful. So, yeah, you can have your Delaware entity, but you really want to be thinking about yourself, right? Because you can't afford to be glad-handed when it comes to your own interest versus your investors' interest. And there are ways to balance all these things in Itana. So that is another reason why we're look, it's a work in progress. We're always looking for feedback and we're talking to the right people. That's the thing that excites me the most. We're talking to the right people about this stuff. So I'm actually very, very, very excited about that because, where we're going with this is that this place needs to be better for African companies who want to scale across Africa and around the world than Delaware is. That's the goal.
Unreal. Incredible progress as well. I think like hearing that that's happening in the background and that's going to be a reality is really exciting. I have like maybe one follow-up question, a quick one, and then I want to ask you guys another question for both of you. And before we go to questions from the audience. So there's one thing which is designing and implementing policy. There's another thing which is implementation. So that actually having these people, fund managers, companies, decide to domicile in Nigeria. And then I guess there's another thing, which is we know that African companies, Pan-African companies don't just exist in Nigeria and stay there. In most cases, they tend to scale. Like Flutterwave, Andela, a lot of these companies are like, okay, where's next? How do we continue to expand? And that's a reality building across Africa. So I guess my question is, how do you then, once you have the policy bedrock, how do you then push implementation and convince people, hey, no, this is viable, guys? And then also get other governments to do this too. Because again, we don't want this to just be something limited to one place.
Fantastic. I'll speak to that. I think the first thing is we have to build valuable companies inside Itana. There's a lot of, typically when people set this stuff up, there's a lot of focus on how do we get existing large companies to move. And I think for us, that's a good focus. And we're going to do a little bit of that. But our first thing is like, how did they get all of us to incorporate our companies in Delaware? Well, YC just mandated it. And that was that. So if we build the YC of Africa in Itana, everyone's going to do it. So because it just, at the end of the day, it'll just be, hey, if you want access to X, you have to do Y. And Accelerate actually is a partnership with Itana. And that's the core purpose of Accelerate. And that partnership is going to become much tighter thanks to a really interesting investment from the Africa Finance Corporation, which is a Nigerian-owned DFI, which is really changing the game and building this free zone infrastructure across Africa. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we're gonna provide things that we're gonna work very closely to make sure that the environment that you have at Itana, both physically and virtually, is one that truly enables you. So everything from providing you with capital, which we're currently orchestrating right now, to providing you with AI growth like AI access to AI servers and chips, right? To bring in an incredibly deep pool of incredible talent with our digital residency program that you can access. The idea really with Itana is to make it so easy for any company that wants to scale and grow to do so from Nigeria globally, right? And then the third thing is collaborating with other governments. So we've been in deep talks with the US government, obviously. So Delaware is going to play very nicely with Itana, right? And they're already talking about ways we can do that. We're having conversations with Barbados about possibly wrapping in some sort of work stamp visa with digital residency. So if you want to work from Barbados a few months a year like I do, you can do that. And earn your path to citizenship as opposed to buy a passport, which would be really cool. We're talking to other African countries with the support of our ministry, where we can actually provide, through the Ministry of Digital Economy, access to the country's digital trade desk. So if you sell software, basically every Nigerian embassy in the world, and I don't know if you heard, but we're setting up one in San Francisco, literally becomes your office address, right? And people can verify who you are from there. So we're building that integration. And there are a lot of very, very exciting things that we're actually pulling together to make sure that there's that global connectivity to Itana, to make sure that everything works. And look, one of the things that really distinguishes us is we've got investors, and we've got a new one coming on board I can't mention yet, that we're partnering with to establish touch points across Africa, right? Literally, they're like our big brother partner, and they're all over the continent, and we're gonna be able to pop up Itana spots, like in places that most people can't get to, because it will take them too long and it will take them a long time. So I mean, there's a very, very rich plan to make sure that this is not just something that is just like sitting in Nigeria. You can't use it anywhere in the world. It has no benefit to you outside of Nigeria. You know what I mean? But then again, look, access to Nigeria is not a small thing, right? It's a market of 240 million people, extremely profitable market to operate in, home to 5 of Africa's 10 unicorns. So you probably want to be in Lagos anyway. And by the way, one other thing is we're also negotiating with Lagos additional benefits, personal benefits for people who choose to work from Lagos. Right? Because, for example, the one thing I'll tell you that most people don't say is you still have to pay your personal income tax, even though Nigeria's personal income taxes are the lowest on the continent. I have verified that. I have, right? You have to pay your personal income tax, but what Lagos State is doing is for people who work remotely, they're adding additional benefits. So they'll give you a rebate, for example, in the proposed law that we're working on. They'll give you a rebate, for example, for like your rent. They'll give you a rebate for your laptop. They'll give you a rebate for internet bills. They'll give you a rebate for like basically most of your expenses that you spend. They'll give you a rebate for co-working space so long as it's in Lagos, just to make sure that you continue to be in Lagos, which who doesn't want to be in the capital of the world?
That's awesome. I like that because it's not just, hey, we're building this here and we're shipping new policy here and it's great. It's like, no, we're actually bringing everyone on board. Like we're getting Delaware involved. We're getting other countries involved, trying to find partners who can help us scale this thing. So it's really like, it's an ecosystem. It's not just when you think of SEZ, you think of one place. And I think this is truly digital and cross borders. Now we're being asked to move to Q&A, but I have one quick question for you both. In your opinion, what do you think is most urgently needed right now in our ecosystem out of these three things? Talent, policy, or capital? Within our tech ecosystem, which of these three things do you think
Nkechi, you go first. I want to hear your answer.
You can only choose one.
That is so tough because the answer would have been like all three. But I would say I want to lean towards policy. I'm shifting between policy and talent at the same time. I think policy because people need the government backing that creates an enabling environment for them to do work, things that make things seamless for them to be able to do that. So they need that in place. And you also need that in place in order to be able to attract the capital, because you also need to have basic framework that give investor confidence. So I want to say policy would be most urgent. That would be my own answer. Personal, not.
Nice.
Look, I believe unequivocally it is talent. And here's why.
I knew that was going to be the answer.
Unfortunately, I am a policy guy. I talk to all the friends. Some people have even called me a pariah. I'm really a pariah for talking to politicians, whatever. I'm very single-minded in what I do. But you really need talent. And the reason why you need talent is it's very hard to have policy conversations in a vacuum. And this is from practical experience engaging government, right? Because when talented people make a decision and say, look, I'm coming from the UK, I'm coming from the US, I've seen how things are done there, and I'm coming back to Nigeria, and I'm here, and I want to make this work for us, i.e. you, the government, and me, the talent. Here's what I need. Honestly, the government is far more receptive to that feedback than you think, right? Because they realize that they have to keep you here somehow. And if they keep you here, at minimum, you're going to spend money. Even if you don't pay them taxes, you will spend money, right? And if you spend money, people will get jobs. And if people get jobs, people will vote for them in the next election. And that's good for them. It's a very simple equation for a government, right? They want to keep you here, so you spend your money here. Even if you don't pay them like income taxes or whatever, they might mind it a little bit, but not as much as you think, right? Yeah. So I think we really need talent. And the other thing is that talent density is how spaces get better, right? Like if we didn't try to bring together the 3,000 people that we have brought together in Andela over the years, we would never know there was a need for a new kind of space for technology founders, right? But because we had 3,000 young people, hundreds of young people in one place at the same time, we're like, wow, like this could really scale. So I really think that a lot of time, and I hear this, if we have policy, people will come. I'm like, no, come, let's go make the policy. Do you get what I'm saying? And then capital, let me tell you, this is what I do for a living. Capital is a prostitute. It just goes where talent is. Like, I've seen people invest in Hong Kong. I've seen people invest in Dubai, where like things get scary sometimes. I've seen people invest in countries where you're like, okay, what are you thinking? Because the talent is there. Yeah. I've seen people invest in South Africa. I mean, do you know how hard it is to get your capital out of South Africa? Yeah. And people do it because they're like, well, look, the talent I'm looking for is in South Africa. So I really think capital really doesn't have a problem going anywhere so long as there is that talent density. And I hear this a lot because a lot of people argue, Delaware is Delaware because of talent, like because they have good policy. And I'm like, no. YC made Delaware. Like no one cared where your company was incorporated until YC made it a thing for you to incorporate your company in Delaware. I know that because we experienced it, right? And when YC and Silicon Valley made it a thing to incorporate a company in Delaware, where they were not, by the way, right? Then it became a thing. So it's just talent. Talent makes all the decisions for policymakers, because policymakers don't want to lose talent, as well as for capital, because capital is just a prostitute. They just want to go wherever talent that can make them money, they'll go there.
100%. So guys, we're going to go to questions from the audience. So put your questions in there. I love asking that question. Whenever I actually did a podcast a few weeks ago, and I said talent as well, and I almost got like thrown off stage because I think that whenever we say, "Oh, talent needs to catch up," people assume that we're saying we don't have talent on the continent, which we do actually. It's just about like skilled talent and talent who can attract investment and who can really build these big companies, which is what we need 100 more of to have like our own.
One other thing is like talent reproduces itself. So all, like me, for example, if Jeremy Johnson didn't come to set up Andela in Nigeria, I wouldn't be here, period. Like we can talk about the magic unicorn maker, whatever, all we like. But dude, man, this guy was like failing hard. On lule, as we say in my country, was just failing, you know? Until Jeremy was like, here's how you build a real big company, and literally walked me through it in apprenticeship. So, and look at everybody that's big today. They were taught by somebody. It wasn't like they didn't just wake up talented. You know what I mean? Yeah. They had to go learn it. Either some people came to the continent, which is really scalable, like Rocket, or like, you know, Africa Internet Holdings, or a bunch of other folks that came and taught people those skills, or they went out and got those skills. And a lot of our people have gone out and gotten those skills and come back. So, but you're not going to get around talent, no matter what. No matter how talented you are, you can always be more talented.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So good. Okay, let's dive into some of these questions from our audience. It's been such a fun conversation so far. So I've got one question here from, I'm just going to go through these comments. So from Winfred Maruthi, Itana, do you support scale-ups or companies scaling to Africa with actual market validation, operations, validation, pilots, ops before legislative work to de-risk entry barriers? Okay, that's actually a bit confusing. Maybe tell us if you guys support scale-ups and like at what stage you support companies. I think I might answer that question.
Look, the way to think about it is Nkechi, myself, Lukman, we work for your company, literally. Like, we've been in situations where Nkechi calls me up and it's like, hey, I need you to call this regulator because a company has a problem and you need to get up and do this. I'm like,
I lost count of how many times I've done that.
That's why you're up at 4:30 this morning.
You know what I mean? So like literally, if you're a company, I look at the zone like a massive portfolio, and I do everything I'll do for any of my portfolio companies for companies in the zone. So that's value you get for free. We don't charge extra for that yet. Maybe when we have enough people, we might. The other thing is also that because of our excellent relationships with all these government bodies, right? Because, I mean, they set us up. When we negotiate something for one company, we negotiate it for all the companies in your sector. For example, we're negotiating stuff now for VCs that want to move into the zone. Guess what? When we negotiate that applies to every VC that moves into the zone. So it's a beautiful platform because it's like one and done. So if you're a scale up and you know what you want from government and whatever, we can help you figure it out. And not just that, we can help you figure out infrastructure. We've helped companies lease land. We've helped companies import goods with zero duty. We've helped companies, the list of things we've helped companies do is like very long. We'll keep talking about it. So just come, let's sit down with you. Let's figure it out. And for just literally, you get almost like consulting that's worth tens of thousands of dollars, right? And tons of equity for free just because you're a company.
Awesome.
I think that's really important. Even the access. There's a company that I know I have bugged you down with, and they are in the logistics space, right? So they're trying to enter the market and they need partners, they need access to that. And we have to help them to be able to do that. So whatever level the company is an already established company in the South African market. So their companies are already established. We have companies from UAE established, and then Itana was their first entry point into the African market. We have companies that are set up by second-time founders who have gone through the hassle of setting up a company in the past and seen all the friction and have understood that Itana is the best way to do it smarter the second time around, right? So it's of different stages, and that's really what makes it interesting. And now, even with the work to help VCs to be able to domicile their funds in the zone, I think we'll be able to see even more of that impact as we get that mix of people in the zone.
Super cool. Yeah, super cool. Awesome. Okay, a question from Malibu and Kosi. How does tax work with Itana when it comes to exiting? And then maybe also just like, how does tax work generally with Itana?
Yeah, I mean, very simple. The way taxes work is in Nigeria, you typically have a 30% corporate income tax, right? And capital gains tax based on the new law starting next year. At Itana, that tax does not exist, right? You do get some smaller charges here and there, but they're nowhere near 30%. It's more along the lines of 2.5%. However, the expectation on you is you do business outside the country, not inside, right? If you want to do business in the country, there are smart structures you can adopt, but they would require you to incorporate in the country, and then you use your Itana company as a holdco, right? But that is a very particular point that like we can discuss in like a private session. The only thing you're really responsible for tax-wise, beyond the small levies that we charge, which are nowhere near 30%, is like more lower single digits, is we actually you have to pay your income tax, which no one gets out of that. But again, Nigeria is very interesting in the sense that the highest tax bracket that you can have is essentially 25%, right? So which is much lower than a lot of countries. And within the zone, we're working with Lagos State to offer you the ability to deduct certain expenses if you're a remote worker in a zone from your taxes. So that also, or to be rebated, not necessarily deduct, but you get the money back essentially from your taxes. So that's another very interesting conversation that we're having. And yeah, but like vast majority of taxes, whatever, you don't have to worry about it because you're in the zone. Definitely don't have to worry about CIT. Definitely don't have to worry about capital gains. Definitely don't have to worry about development levy. All of that doesn't apply to you.
Awesome. And Nkechi, do you want to add to that, or do we feel that one's good?
Oh, I think he's covered it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, this is a nice question here, which I think is interesting. What trends are you noticing in diaspora engagement or investment, firstly, and then how is Itana positioning itself accordingly?
That's a great question because I'm on a road show talking to a lot of diaspora. So I think the biggest thing, diaspora is recognizing that a lot of hard assets are undervalued because of the currency devaluation. So like real estate, for example, a lot of diaspora are investing in real estate. But the one thing many diaspora don't really understand about how real estate works is like, it's hard to get your money out and it's hard to sell, except you do it in the zone. So we're engaging more diaspora to say, hey, like you should seriously consider like letting us help you to build out whatever entity and structure you're going to need for your portfolio, because you don't want a situation where you can't get your money out, right? Second of all, we're now seeing a lot of diaspora not just invest capital in startups, but actually bring their talent, right, and hire on the ground, even though they're wherever they are. And like Itana is super optimized for that. Super, in the sense that we'll help you set up the entity, will help because it's you that they're servicing in the US or whatever. You just pay them and you can do Nigeria tax free. And then you can hire staff into your your free zone company. And when your product is ready for Nigeria, you set up a Nigerian subsidiary if you want to go into Nigeria. But if you want to go anywhere in the world, you can still do that tax-free, right? So, and you have a bank account that you can operate remotely and all of that. Like me, for example, all my global earnings are in my entity in the zone, right? Because it just makes sense for me. It just keeps me very tax light. And all the people I hire directly into the zone. Allows me to bring in foreign staff, which sometimes you need, foreign advisors, which sometimes you need, with SERPAC, and all the other benefits. And now you can even, like, once the SEC rules are done, you can actually do trusts out of the zone, and do funds out of the zone. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for diaspora to think really smartly about investing in Nigeria through these entities. But the biggest, and I'll say the third biggest trend I'm seeing, apart from people putting their talent and their capital where their capital is that we're seeing a lot of people, diaspora, leveraging Nigerian talent, right, to build for wherever they are. So I've got a lot of friends who used to be in the tech ecosystem, jackpot, right? And they're building incredibly profitable businesses in the US. One of them, very famous founder, came to me the other day and was like, hey, I'm building like a technology-enabled car wash. I'm like, car wash? He's like, yeah, car wash. I'm like, okay, how's that gonna go? And he's actually doing really well. Introduced him to a few angel investors. And he has a tech team and a support team in Nigeria within the zone that's gonna help him to be able to support that car wash business. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to get additional income, through the zone as well.
I think what I will add to that I'm seeing from people in diaspora is they see Itana as a way to stay connected to what's happening on the continent, because it's easy to spend so much time outside of the country, outside of the continent, and you begin to lose certain context, and you actually begin to lose the network that you need that makes it easy for you. So they see it as a way to stay connected. So we're seeing different types of people that want to stay connected because they would like to build something in the future or invest in the future, and it's their way to have their foot in the inside, right? And the other bit are people that actually want to get active, as he has mentioned, either through investing, but also setting up an entity themselves. So it's easy for them because they can set up an entity remotely from wherever they are and start doing business, and then have that support. So Itana then serves as a gateway for them to do that. So we've seen huge interest. To be honest, a majority of the people that are leveraging Itana are people in diaspora because they completely understand how this allows them the support that they need to do great business, or to easily invest, co-invest, and access opportunities on the continent.
So interesting. It's interesting that a lot of that group is diaspora who actually are leveraging that opportunity, and it definitely makes sense to get set up and domiciled. We might do 2 more questions and then wrap. I hope that works for timing, guys. Let me know. Yeah. So we have a question from Favor, which is, Itana's ecosystem appears to favor fintech, yet many of Nigeria's and Africa's most pressing challenges are healthcare, education, agriculture, logistics, aren't in finance. How does Itana ensure for fair support and investment across diverse sectors so transformative ideas also get the infrastructure and backing they need? So yeah, would you say that's accurate firstly around a lot of these companies being in fintech, or is it
that's not accurate? That's interesting. It's not accurate, actually. So yeah, that's how I was surprised at the comments.
Like, the biggest surprise is that we're not actually seeing that many fintech companies.
Interesting. What companies are you seeing? Yeah.
Nkechi, what would you say? I think we're seeing like
the top.
Yeah, the
top
ones
we're seeing lots of SaaS companies, and interesting trend that we are noticing now is AI companies. So that's why we started working on the AI growth zone, because we saw a lot of interest in these AI companies that needed all these layers of support from compute, specific talent needs, specific regulatory support around what they're doing. So that has been the most. And then we have health tech as well, and logistics. So when he said fintech, I was like, that's not actually accurate. I mean,
actually more diverse than that.
Yes.
The other thing I would say, and just to buttress Nkechi's point, is we're actually seeing a lot of hard tech, like hardware, because like if you're a company, so let me explain why it's that way, right, Caleb, right? First of all, if you want like a license from the Central Bank of Nigeria, we don't have rules set up for that yet. We're probably going to get rules set up for like if you want a license from SEC before we have rules set up for if you want a license from Central Bank. So it doesn't really make sense for you if you're a fintech. I'm just being like, Nkechi's probably screaming in her head. I'm like, I'm just telling you what it is. Second thing is like, if you are doing anything that involves like importing like hardware or tech and you want to do it inside the zone, we can give you land, right, with our partner, and we can actually process your import duty-free. So imagine you're building like a small server cluster of H100s, you know, and you just need a space to put them in the zone. Like that makes more sense, right? That's in the zone because those things are really expensive. Like you don't want to pay duty on them. You get what I'm saying? So it makes a lot of sense. And then if you're doing like businesses that require you to like stock items, and you know the currency is always fluctuating, so you want to charge whatever the duty will be at the time of charge, right? As opposed to pay for the duty and then later the currency goes down or goes up and you're kind of worried and you just want to pay just in time duty, right? You don't want to like pay duty for months on end when you've cleared it and then you know the customer doesn't come. You know what I mean? So you just want to be like, stocked, no problem. When the customer comes, I'll charge them based on stock plus duty. And the price can change on that basis. So it actually makes perfect sense why people like fintech people are not going to find this place like the best place.
Okay.
It will change, right? Because I think, honestly, even me personally, I'm seeing a big shift away from like banking and payments led fintechs to like capital market fintechs. And those capital market fintechs, I think we're going to be ready for you like by the end of the year.
Awesome. Super cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's actually not fintech focused. It's good to know. And it seems like there's a lot of other benefits for for general companies.
And the second question, the second part of that question, like for me, my goal this year and through to next year is this has to be the place where there's so much capital. Like it's the easiest place for you to administer capital outside of Delaware. Because the truth is, if you're a Nigerian investor, Delaware doesn't pay you. It just comes with a 30% tax for nothing. Do you get what I'm saying? If you're a Nigerian founder, Delaware doesn't pay you, right? It just comes with a 30% tax for doing nothing, right? So like at least those two ecosystems, if there was a way to like move them away from Delaware and bring them to Itana over the next year, that would be a fantastic achievement. And then, you know, when you want to deal with the US VCs, whenever they show up, then you go to Delaware. And the structure still allows for that. Caleb, do we still have you?
I think we've lost him.
Oh, I hope not.
It wasn't sure it was my network, but I think we've lost him.
You can hear me. Yeah,
I network. Can you hear me?
By the way, Itana has the fastest internet in Lagos. We have 500 Mbps and we've upgraded now to 1 Gbps. So you can go and test it next time you visit.
Yeah. Okay, so we've lost Caleb. I think he wanted us to take one more question.
Yes.
Let me look through and see, or probably when he joins back anyways. Let's see. Lots of questions, lots of very interesting questions. But I will say this, you can send your questions to us. I'm going to put the email, the support email in the chat because I'm seeing lots of questions and we wouldn't be able to take all of it. I'm just putting that there so that you can send the questions and then we'll be able to take them. And before Caleb rejoins, I also want to mention that if you want to stay connected to Itana, either you can set up your business in the zone and be able to access a lot of the benefits, but you can also join the digital residency. That is like a low entry access for people to join. We're doing a kickoff next week. I'm going to put a link so that you can easily apply and then be able to to get in. There's a bit of a vetting process, and there's a membership fee that you pay, and then you'll be able to join and access and get some of the support that Itana offers.
Caleb, you need to move to Itana.
I was going to say that. How reliable is your Wi-Fi?
You need to move to Itana and get real internet. You get real
That'd
internet.
Be good. Is Starlink on offer? I would take that for sure.
No, Starlink. So I was gonna say, Caleb, we have the fastest internet in Lagos.
Really?
1 GB per second. No kidding. No kidding.
That's great.
So actually, whenever I have like a lot of work to do, I just go there and just spend the weekend.
I will need to visit soon.
Absolutely.
Guys, thank you so much. I think, Nkechi, you dove into the digital residency launchpad, which is super exciting. We're excited to have that and support and get around that. I'd suggest that everyone here also checks that out if they want to make the most of it. I love, again, just that, I guess just to round out, hey, I think it's incredible the way that this special economic zone is being built to build infrastructure for startups across Africa and tech companies. And also the fact that it's being built starting in Nigeria, but globally at the same time, and also with the rest of the world in mind. I think I'm really excited to see what happens. Also, just as a community at Tech Safari, we'd love to see how we can plug in more and be part of it. And yeah, I'd really suggest that anyone who's interested in being part of the digital residency Launchpad tries that out. I think we might also try go for it as well. Thank you so much for your time, Nkechi.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Nkechi, you're not gonna give Tech Safari members in Lagos a discount on the digital residency?
Yeah, I would get, there is a sponsorship, so I would try and get a sponsor to cover some people from this webinar. So indicate
because there's such awesome people. So let's
so
cool.
in the place where it says referred, put in Tech Safari, and I'll try and get one of our founding council members to just do like a bulk sponsorship for a number of people. It might be limited, so the sooner you get in and apply, the better, right? I've put in the link, and I'm guessing maybe we can send it again after the session.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you guys so much. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you have a takeaway, feel free to type in what you found interesting from that session. And Nkechi, thank you so much for your time. This is such an incredible deep dive into what you're building and also just how to build infrastructure for Africa's tech ecosystem. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for being an awesome host.
Thank you for being an awesome host. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye.